When she awoke, it was night time, and the owners of the house had returned. They were not little children, as she thought, but 7 dwarfs, diamond miners for the kingdom, and they were looking at her with very puzzled expressions. The first looked very friendly, with a big smile. The second looked very unhappy indeed. The third looked like a professor. The fourth looked like a clown. The fifth looked just as sweet and gentle as could be. The sixth had a red nose and a big handkerchief in his pocket. And the seventh looked very, very shy. She smiled at him, and he tripped up, sending everyone tumbling. "Who are you?" they said. "I'm Snow White," she answered, and she told them her sad story. "Why, that queen's an evil woman. Imagine trying to kill a beautiful princess like you. You must stay here with us. We'll protect you." "Oh, thank you," said Snow White. "I can cook and clean and mend your clothes." "Then that's settled," said the dwarfs, and they cheered and danced and sang. Meanwhile, thinking Snow White was dead, the wicked queen once again stood before her magic mirror. "Now, O mirror on the wall, I am the fairest of them all." But the mirror replied, "In a forest clearing a house I see, where 7 little men and Snow White be. And so, in spite of your dread plan, she's still the fairest in the land." The queen flew into an uncontrollable rage. "Then I shall kill her myself," she screamed. Using all her dark powers, she disguised herself as an ugly old woman. "She'll never recognize me now," she cackled to herself. Looking at the bright red apple in her hand, she snarled, "One bite from this poison apple, and I will be rid of Snow White forever. She will sleep for 1,000 years. Only love's sweet kiss can waken her. But no one will ever find her, and the prince will be mine." Unaware of this evil plan, Snow White woke early the next morning to prepare breakfast for the dwarfs. Lots of lovely home-baked bread and strawberry jam. The dwarfs could hardly wait to sit at the table. They didn't even mind having to wash their hands. They'd eaten every morsel of the beautiful dinner she'd cooked for them the night before. Not even a crumb was left of the delicious apple pie she'd baked for dessert. After their meal, they'd sung and danced till the small hours. How they loved Snow White, and they were very anxious that no harm would befall her. "Now you take care while we're at work. Don't you open that door to anyone," they warned her. "I won't," said Snow White. She waved goodbye to her new friends and watched as they marched off to work in the diamond mine. "Now," she said to herself, "I'd better tidy this cottage and begin baking some more apple pies." Snow White was so busy at her work, she didn't notice the old woman approaching the cottage. "Anybody home? I'm lost in the forest. Can anyone help me?" Forgetting the dwarf's words of warning, Snow White ran outside to see who was calling. Before her stood an old woman, dressed all in black. She looked very ugly and frightening. "Oh, what a pretty young girl," she said. "Please, can I rest a while in your cottage? I've been walking for hours." Snow White's kind heart melted. "Oh, you poor old lady. Come in and sit down. I'll get you a glass of water." Once inside the cottage, the old woman reached into her pocket and brought out a beautiful red, shiny apple. "Here, my dear, this is for you, to thank you for being so kind." At first, Snow White hesitated. "Oh, go on, my dear," she insisted. "Take it. It's a gift from an old woman. Go on. Take a nice big bite." It did look delicious, so Snow White took a big bite. "Oh," she said, "oh, I feel so sleepy." And immediately she fell to the floor as if dead. When the 7 little men returned home from the diamond mine, they found their beloved Snow White lying on the ground, the poison apple still in her hand. Try as they might, they couldn't waken her. "She must be dead," they sobbed. They couldn't bring themselves to bury her, for she looked so beautiful. So they put her in a crystal casket near the diamond mine, so that they could watch over their lovely princess. Each day they put fresh flowers around her, and the little animals and birds would nestle close to her, as if to keep her warm. Little did the dwarfs know that Prince Roberto was searching high and low for his loved one, Snow White. The royal huntsman had told him of the queen's wickedness, and how he had been forced to leave Snow White in the forest. "I shall find her no matter how long it takes," vowed the prince. It wasn't long before he found the cottage, and the dwarfs led him to Snow White's coffin. Sadly, he knelt down. "I'm too late," he thought, "but I shall give her one last kiss." Leaning down, he kissed her lightly on the lips. Immediately, Snow White opened her eyes and sat up. "You're alive!" cried the prince. As the dwarfs cheered, the prince lifted her into his arms and asked her to marry him. "Yes, I will marry you," Snow White happily agreed. There was great celebration on the day of their wedding, and everyone from both kingdoms was invited. Everyone, that is, except the wicked queen. She was banished to a far distant land and was never seen again. The dwarfs were heroes because of their kindness to Snow White, and were frequent guests at the palace. And as for Snow White and the prince, they lived happily ever after.